Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the 2026 Qur'an Literacy Program of the Women's Mosque of America. This is discussion number 7, and we want to welcome you all. As always, let's begin with Al-Fatiha, and then we'll introduce our facilitator and get right into it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome again. So good to see so many people starting off with us today. We're going to get right into it. And I just want to say once again, we're so lucky to have our amazing facilitator in Nadia Sheikh, who will guide you through this month curriculum, which I found so bad. This is one of my favorite. I say that every month, I think. But it is. They're all so wonderful. The writing, the history, the insight that our beloved Hasna put into this curricula. Alhamdulillah, it would be a benefit for many generations to come.
All right, let's dive in. Discussion number 7. We are officially 2/3 of the way, alhamdulillah, through our year together. All right, so this year, or this discussion, we're going to be talking about, since we're discussion number 7, month 7, which is learning to hear, think, and see with God consciousness. So if you're on the 1-year track, this is, I'm sorry, it was month 6. It was the month that just finished. And if you're not, you can see here. Kareem, you want to come say hi? Come say hello. No. Okay, then shh. And if you're not in the 1-year track, then this will prime you for when you do get to that month. Okay, let's start with our opening icebreaker. This is in the prophetic tradition, or in the tradition of the Quran, rather, from the verse, "O humanity, behold, we created you all out of a male and a female, have made you into nations and tribes, so you might come to know one another. Verily, the noblest of you in the sight of God is the one who is most deeply conscious of God. Beware, God is all-knowing, all-aware." So, to get to know each other, and there's a reason I have these things, these items to talk about, you'll see later on. But of the above 4 items, I've got water, milk, dates, and grapes. Which do you like the most and why? Or which do you like the least and why? So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to put that question in the chat. So I have 4 items: water, milk, dates, and grapes. There is no right or wrong answer. This is just to kind of get to know each other. Which one do you like the most and why? Or which do you like the least and why? Who'd like to go first?
Another orange. Just another orange.
All right, one person, Meshgan, put water because we need it to survive. Shokat said grapes. Why grapes?
I say it or write it?
You can say it. You don't have to put it.
Yeah, I want to say water, but water is universal. We need water. We love water. We have to have water. But I'm not a water fan. I have to push myself to drink my water. So I even have one time I just have alarm going on, drink your water. But grapes, I just love it because it have this crunch. It have this tart, sourness, and especially the green grapes. Mm-hmm. And it just stimulates head to toe. Mm-hmm. That's my experience. And when I drive, especially when I go to road trip, I have a cup of grapes on my cupboard. Mm-hmm. And I don't drink coffee, so instead of coffee, I have a cup of grapes that keep me my awakening, my company on I just have that when I go for a road trip.
Wonderful. Thank you. Kareem, do you like milk? Do you like milk? Yep. Okay. I got to vote for dates. So, Kanawal, you put dates. You want to talk through why dates?
Yeah, so for me, it was an acquired taste in the beginning. Growing up, my parents loved it and they would encourage me, but I didn't have a taste for it. And then I discovered there were a whole bunch of different kinds of dates, and I like the ones that are that are soft, has a lot of fiber in it, and it just hits the spot at the right time. Alhamdulillah. So I have grown really fond of them, and now they're my go-to snack, even outside of Ramadan. So alhamdulillah.
Thank you. Jean, we have a vote from you for the most and the least. You want to tell us about that?
Oh, sure. Well, water for sure, because it does sustain life. We need to live. So do plants, so do animals, but it's also more than a food. It's also like transportation. You know, you can sail a ship across the ocean. There's lots of things, clean your house. You need water for everything. Although I do agree that it doesn't taste that great to me. It's kind of bland. I guess that's the point. So I would probably rather have grapes, but if I had to choose one, I would choose water. And the least milk, I'm lactose intolerant, so it doesn't sit well with me. I feel like I needed it when I was a baby, but now I can live off water. So
That sounds good. So, any guesses why these 4 items I put in here? What might they have in common that might relate to our conversation today?
They were preferred by Rasulullah. Preferred
Awesome.
food.
Awesome. Thank you.
And it's diversity.
Diversity. We've talked a lot about diversity this year. Absolutely. Jean they're all mentioned in the Quran.
Yeah.
And so let's dive into that one a little bit. So they're all mentioned for what purpose?
To sustain our life.
Uh-huh.
Are they also foods that will be present in heaven?
Yes. Okay, awesome. Okay, I primed you. I'm not going to give you what the answer I was thinking of. These are all true answers, but you'll see as we keep going. As I mentioned, this month's discussion, the title of the curriculum actually for last month that we're discussing this month is Learning to Hear, Think, and See with God Consciousness, or in another way, so as everything we're doing, hearing, thinking, and seeing. The surah we're going to be talking about is Surah 16, which is known as the bee. And this surah is named for a metaphor of a bee, which is discussed in the surah. It's full of metaphors throughout. And spoiler alert, water, milk, date, and grapes are all metaphors used in this surah. I was really blown away last month when we talked. We had a little reflection at the beginning. And I mentioned that oftentimes we don't give ourselves credit where credit is due. So I want us to think. Last time we talked about being a person of truth and beauty, and that being aligned with how God created us. This month I want us to think about being a person who hears, sees, and thinks with God consciousness. So I want you to think of one of these 2 prompts. Either I am a person who hears, sees, and thinks with God consciousness because, or I was a person who heard, saw, or thought with God consciousness when. So we have our first thing. I was a person who heard, saw, or thought with God consciousness when I was going through hardship. Mejgan, thank you for sharing that. I don't know. I know you're in a public place. I don't know if you can talk, but and you don't have to share with us any details about your hardship. But what was it about that time where you felt like you were, your senses were in line with God consciousness?
I think yeah, you're right. I'm in a public place. I think it's when you kind of you feel completely powerless and you've kind of lost. And so I shouldn't say the only thing, but like, then that's the time to kind of go, okay, what am I doing? And it gives you kind of a direction that rather than feeling powerless.
Thank you so much. I still remember there was a QLP session. Mishkan, you might have been there in that. It was one of the in-person QLP sessions we had a few years ago, where we had some interfaith sisters joining us, and they were saying it was a question about hope, and they were saying they didn't really feel hope. And one of the pieces that we were that I think Hasna said is that is one of the core pieces that God talks to us about in the Quran is hope. All right. Jean, do you want to go next?
Oh, sure. I can be very, I don't want to say stubborn, but when I want something, I want it. And I just kind of like laser focus on it.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be frustrating for myself to be in that situation. So, remembering that Allah knows best and that I should not want it so much, but I should want what's best for me. And I don't know what that is all the time, but that's a new way I've been training my mind. It's hard to think that way. So my initial thought is my usual, but I've been trying to shift. And it is definitely a more peaceful way to live for sure. I'm not fighting trying to get things because I need it, right? Or it's best for me.
Yeah.
Allah knows best.
It's so interesting you said as, you know, how you kind of were and then you're training yourself to be, because it kind of is, you know, we talk about our physical being as a young child and maturing. We don't talk as much about our spiritual being, how it starts younger and it matures, right? So a young child wants what they want when they want it,
Right.
because they have their realm. And spiritually, we are, you know, our development doesn't always follow the same track as our physical development. And so it's interesting to me that you chose the word peaceful afterwards, because if you think of children, there are many things, but I wouldn't describe them as peaceful.
Right.
They're the highs, they've got the lows, they feel everything deeply. And so I was just thinking of that when you were sharing.
Well, that's a good analogy too, because as a parent, you would see what's not good for them, but they might want that thing. They, like a really young child, would throw themselves off the top of the staircase and not know what's dangerous, but you know best. So it's the same thing. I definitely have blinders on, because I'm human, so I don't know best, even though I think I do sometimes.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's go to Paula next. She said, I don't know how to best answer, but I'm currently building the skill. It's so hard to remove the world and external from the forefront of my mind. I try to think that way at work because I'm a social worker. Yeah. It is a beautiful thing when we can bring God consciousness, not only into moments when we're on our own and alone, but into our public lives, into our work lives. And anybody else?
Wait, I think I fixed it. Can you
yeah,
hear me?
you got it. You got it.
Hey! So no, that's what I was gonna say. It's you know, life has been lifing and the world is there's so much going on in the world right now. And it's, you know, I'm trying to keep God as close to my heart as possible so that I can be a reflection. And I like the way that we use the words hope and we use the words, you know, we come to God in our times of despair. We come to God in our times of joy. We come to God in our times of panic and disruption. And it's like God is always there. So part of me wanting to do this program was so that I could elevate my level of God consciousness.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Shoka, did you want to share? I know you put it in the chat. Okay. She put, not always God consciousness, but most of the time when I see even something very unnoticeable. Like this morning, there was a squirrel in my backyard. It was doing many movements. It seems like it was showing off, standing 2 feet like a meerkat. SubhanAllah. Then it drank water from the pool and jumped on the fence and it was looking at me through the window. I was so overwhelmed with the joy and I kept saying, Alhamdulillah. What a beautiful memory of God consciousness. And you know what I love about that is that it's not always in the moments of high emotion. It's not always in the despair or the joy like we talked about, but sometimes just in those quiet moments too. We talk, and one thing I will say as I'm listening to many people is we're starting with disclaimers again. We're saying I'm here. Yeah. We're starting with I don't know, but I'm not honestly sure, but no, share. This is from you. So thank you. What a beautiful reflection, Shoka. Just things that are outside that you see. And Jean agrees. She also enjoys watching nature's God creation. Let's go to Gwen.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I was a person who birds on thought with God consciousness. At a time about 10 years ago, I was still working. And part of my job as a meeting and event planner was to go downtown and tour various hotels. And so I was with my coworker, and she and I were touring all these fancy hotels downtown San Francisco, which is very close to the district known as the Tenderloin. And so as we were walking back to the bank, we saw a poor man who was an unhoused person. He looked like he was mentally unstable, and he was astaghfirullah. The poor man was just, he was so ragged with his clothes that his aura was showing. And no one, people were just passing him by. He wasn't even trying to beg. He was hunched over and he was shuffling. He had no shoes. He had no pants. He had a red shredded shirt. And that was it. And my colleague said, you know, my God, look at that man. Someone's got to help him. And, you know, for the first time in my life, I was able to think in the moment. I said, let's do it. And we were near a Gap. And okay, this is bad, but I took my credit card out and I went to the Gap and I said, I cornered one of the sales associates and I said, I need your help. There's a man out there who doesn't have clothes. I want to buy clothes for him. I went to a male sales associate. And I got him pants and socks and a t-shirts and a shirt. And then we went back out with the clothes and under things. And I found two men to help us because I didn't want to approach a man. I was scared, but I was like, you know, someone's got to do something. We're someone, right? So with the help of the men, they kind of surrounded him, and I took my chador and kind of took my back to the man and held it out to be like a little bit of a shade for him. And the men got him dressed. And then I said, can you ask him if he has a place to stay for the night? And the man couldn't really understand. So I called the hotline number for the homeless, which is not the cops in San Francisco. There's a different line. And got the homeless outreach team, which used to be a thing before the tax cuts came in. And it's one of the few times I think I was able to see through discomfort and to real other human distress. You know, I mean, I was concerned about, oh, mental illness and oh this and oh that, and I just, you know, I just feel that it was a touch from something beyond what I would be able to do myself. So thank you.
SubhanAllah, what a beautiful story. And there's so many pieces of that where you say, you know, I had a moment of clarity. I saw through my discomfort. It was really God consciousness touching you in that moment. Paula, something stood out to you. You put in the chat that was the same thing. Do you want to share what that was that stood out to you from what Gwen said?
It's just, we always have this conversation amongst ourselves about the things that we want to do. And, you know, just like you went through that uncomfortable moment, that could have easily been a dangerous situation, but you pushed through your fear and your compassion is what led you. And I think that's the thing. Somebody needs to do something. And that's that moment where you say, I'm someone. That's just such a beautiful thing to me. It makes me feel like that's the purpose why we're here. We are here to help each other. We're not self-sustaining individuals alone. We are here to help each other. We do need each other. And sometimes we have to step out of ourselves, our ego, our comfort zones in order to just have that ability to help somebody else without seeking something in return, without making it a TikTok video, without bragging about anything that we've done. It's just you're moving in silence and love.
I love that. And God consciousness. I love that. I love that. I love these sharing because, you know, these The first time I read the curriculum, Hasna has these titles at the top: becoming a person of this, and it felt so lofty and unattainable to me. But in these opening things where we share about ourselves, it is obvious how much in our daily lives we are living, alhamdulillah, and continue to strive to live in this way that God intended us to live. There was one thing someone mentioned last time, that I'm a person of truth and beauty because God created me. And same thing I could say with this one, that we're all people of God consciousness because that's how God created us. So, becoming people who listen, think, and reflect, which is again Surah 16, which is the B. We're going to be talking about a few verses in there. So, in light of God's reminders to think critically and reflect deeply, we're going to take some time to process some metaphorical verses. I'd like to start with a snippet from a QLP session, I think 2 years ago, where Hasna kind of framed how to approach thinking about some of the metaphors that are in the Quran.
If the Quran is an ocean and everyone in our society can go and visit the ocean, to their capacity or to their ability, you'll get deep sea divers. You'll get people dipping their toes in, right? You'll even get people just sitting on the sand and observing the beautiful sunset. And maybe that's a perspective that someone who's deep sea diving their whole life will never see, right? So we're using that same sort of concept with the Quran. Yes, we want everyone to be educated about the Quran, and that's why we're having this program to have everybody read it over the course of the year. But in terms of our discussions, when we're talking about what we as individuals pick up on, what resonates with us, we never want to discount what someone from another perspective might pick up on. And in that way, we can discuss, we can disagree, we can agree, we can open each other's minds. We can say, no, I disagree, I don't agree with that at all. But it helps when everybody can hear everybody. So that's why we have this open circle discussion type format, even in our Jummas. And we're trying to bring that into our discussion about the Quran. So we really want everyone to participate, because you never know what you might be bringing to the table that others might not pick up on if you didn't speak up.
All right. I love that. First, we saw a lot of you all in there, so that was kind of cool to see. We saw Kareem, who's much bigger now. He was smaller there. But I love that idea of the ocean, because if you think about like a scuba diver in the ocean, they're an expert at the ocean. They spend their time there. They've studied there. They are the expert at talking about it. But someone who might just go there once and sit on the sand and look at it has a perspective that deep sea diver doesn't have. And so same thing in terms of, as we're talking about the Quran, and this is why I always say don't use disclaimers, because the perspective we bring from just being ourselves is so important, and might be a perspective someone else does not have. As we talk about 3 different metaphorical verses, and hint, the one is on water, one is on milk, and one is on fruits of dates and grapes, we're going to read an example that Hasna gave in the curriculum of one possible way how to reflect more deeply, because God tells us to read these signs and reflect on them, that we are a people who listen, we are a people who think, and we are people who reflect. So there's lots of different ways to reflect on these metaphors. So we'll spend some time just coming up with our own unique interpretations based on what you've read of the Quran so far and sharing those reflections. If you go through and nothing comes to mind, that's totally fine. Don't give up. Keep pondering these verses throughout the week, especially when you're feeling relaxed and are in a creative mind state, when you're in a flow state. That's going to help you think more intuitively and help you form connections you otherwise may not have been able to see. And always ask God to guide your understanding. So, Bismillah, God, please guide us in this first verse. So we're going to go through 3 verses. The first is on water. So the verse itself, so as I'm reading it, I want you to think about, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you think? It says, and God caused water to descend from heaven, and from it gave life to the earth after its death. Truly, in this is a sign for a folk who hear. One example reflection on this is, What we perceive as dead is easy for God to bring to life with just a single rainfall. Even when things seem hopeless, we need to keep asking God for help, because only God knows where and what hidden seeds of possibility are still alive. All God has to say be, and it is. And so here's one where, and it reminds me of Shalkut's example of the squirrel. We may not be doing anything, and it might start to rain. And there's a time where we can actually think and reflect back on this verse about water and how it comes from God and how it gives life to the earth after its death. And in that, there is a sign for people who hear. So I'm going to give us a minute just to reflect on our own. If you want to write on a piece of paper, you can. If you want to open up Discord and write your reflection in Discord, so you have one of this month's requirements set, you can do that. Or if you just want to think, you can as well. But the question is, when you listen closely, what could this sign mean? You listen closely, what could this sign mean? I'm going to read it one more time, and then we're going to spend a minute just thinking in quiet. And God caused water to descend from heaven, and from it gave life to the earth after its death. Truly, and this is a sign for a folk who hear. Let's see. So the first one was on water. The second one is on milk. In the surah it says, and truly for you in the flocks is a lesson. We satiate you from what is in their bellies, between waste and blood, exclusively milk, that which is delicious to the ones who drink. So the reflection that Hasna gave, the example, is God protects milk's purity from two vile places, the udders and the intestines. The udders are located between its heart and its intestines. The heart is the one pumping blood, and the intestines are filled with waste. Similarly, God can provide goodness for us even when we are in vile situations or between two hard places. God's protection is so perfect, it leaves us unscathed and spiritually pure. That was a beautiful reflection on that. So if you'd like to talk about this one, the question is, when you seek to learn, what could this lesson mean about milk? And the third one is on date palms and grapevines. So here is what the verse says. From fruits of the date palm trees and grapevines, you take to yourselves of it which obscures the mind, and fairer provisions. Truly in it is a sign for a folk who be reasonable. The example reflection, God provides us with date palms and grapevines, and then leaves us on earth with a choice. Do we appreciate the goodness we've been given and nourish ourselves with enough? Or do we misuse our gift of intellect to ungratefully seek more and extract harmful products like alcohol, chemically altered and processed food, and other intoxicating technologies that remove us from consciousness, separate us from our consciousness? The irony of our misguided advancements is that we use our minds to obscure our minds. When you think critically, what could this sign mean? All right, so those are the three options: water, milk, and date. All right, for those of you on the line, it's been 15 minutes. Those of you watching on YouTube, it just went like that. So let's go. Instead of having each group share out this time, I'm just going to go by each verse. And if your group talked about it, would love for you to share what all you talked about. So the first verse we talked about was water, and I'll read the verse again. And God caused water to descend from heaven, and from it gave life to the earth after its death. Truly, and this is a sign for folk who hear. Did anyone have conversations about water, and can you share with us what reflections you came up with?
Yes, we did. Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yes, we talked a lot. So the first person in our group who shared, Kanwal, had mentioned, and please feel free to add to it if I miss it. There is with God, with that verse there, it brought to mind the descent of blessings towards the earth from God, and so they were mentioning how they feel like there is definitely different levels of meaning to that. And then Fatima and I just kind of went back and forth on and then I got like down one of my rabbit holes, so I kind of forgot some of the things that people said, but we talked. Fatima, can you remind me? I can't remember.
Yeah,
I'm still stuck on the feminine masculine. Like I just lost track of everything else.
it's all good. Yeah, so Kanwal talked about, she really focused on she word that used dissension, which is not a very common word, but descent of the ruh, descent of blessings, descent of life from Allah, to this earth. So that was a focus of her point of view. And then Ariana talked a lot about the cycle between life and death, and the cycles on this earth, and the miracle of cycles, and how life is generated through entropy. Everything gravitates towards entropy. So there was a lot of discussion on cycles. And did you want to go from here?
Yeah. Now I remember. Okay. So just the miracle of like that in itself is a proof against what a lot of the arguments with atheism and agnosticism is, which is just that like we are just all gonna die and turn to dust and just disappear, and it's over after that. And the fact that, in the Quran, one of the things that the critics of the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would argue the most about is how can we come back to life after we die? And people still say that. And so the fact that we see things die in front of us, and like, for example, leaves falling from the trees, or, the earth that is totally barren, and then there's vegetation that comes out of it when the water hits it and the soil is right, is an example of how like it's possible. It's very possible. So that was like the biggest thing I got out of it. And then I kind of talked more about like I read this book, this Asian or Japanese book written by somebody who had converted to Islam, and it was drawing a parallel between yin and yang. So feminine and masculine, the qualities, and how when rain descends from the heaven, that's the heaven being in an active state, which would be qualified as masculine. And then the earth, these are just qualities, not like man, women, or anything, but the earth receiving it is feminine, is the earth acting in a feminine state. But then like the greenery and vegetation being produced by the earth from it is actually the earth acting as masculine. So it shows how, females, men, and actually God, like you can't, I think like we're all capable of different types of qualities, and even those qualities that come from us are different based on the creation, and it also changed my relationship with God, because God is not a man. God doesn't just do masculine things. Like a lot of these, and thinking about some of the feminine or the feminine aspects from God is something to reflect about, and we could go deeper on that. So that was what it.
So interesting. This is why I love different perspectives, so we can learn. And what's so interesting is actually in this surah, just a couple verses, I don't know if it's before or after, it talks about God saying, how dare you, he talks about female infanticide, where they would bury their females. How dare you bury your females and attribute to God as having daughters. So it's so interesting you're talking about the feminine and masculine, because it comes up very, very close to there. So we could kind of dive into that in a little bit.
Yeah, real quick. So Ariana brought this duality up because in the verse there's a relationship between life and death. Mm-hmm. So you'll notice that a lot in the Quran, and that's actually why she's explaining the dual nature. And I just want to make sure everybody understood why that came up. But yeah, so life cannot exist without death, and death cannot exist without life. So it kind of comes full circle with the cycles as well that we talked about.
Yep. Thank you.
Absolutely. And imagine all these thoughts that we may be having and reflecting just when it starts to rain. Like, subhanAllah, like what a... let me dive into, I think, was it Kanwal who was going into the idea of dissension? Was that who it was? Did you want to talk about that, Kanwal? And I want to show some things as well.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, so when you were reading and I was reflecting on it, that was something that stood out. And yes, the life cycles, that's a major part of the verse and the duality of it. It's just the dissension has such a big part in creation in Quran, and mercy is descended, the angels descended, the Quran descended, and everything that sustains us spiritually descended. So there's the other metaphorical sense to me that I can't quite grasp yet, which I was telling the group I'm gonna look into it more, but it has to do, to me, the duality as it relates to life and death, or as it relates to male female, is a product of the mind, because the mind is designed to function in a dual manner, while everything actually exists in a spectrum, including life and death. And we were alive, and we're alive in a different form, and we'll be alive in a different form in the life after. And it looks dual because our mind perceives through language, and as soon as you assign language to something, it becomes dual. So I didn't dive in that part of the verse. I personally want to study the descent more. I'm not sure where I'll arrive, but that was interesting to me.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons, so let me share I have a linguistics background, so I always like going into words, because a lot of times, especially with the Quran, people like to make stuff up about the words that are there. And so when you go into what is the root word there, you learn so much about what may have been intended there. And I think you picked up on such an important...
It's Nazala, right? It's from Nuzul. It's from, yeah.
It sure is. It sure is. Okay, so Islam awakened. I'm actually going to go into, so this is 1665. So I went into Surah 16, the B. I went to 65. Here's the verse. It's in Arabic and it's in English. Here, God sends down water from the skies. Wallahu Anzala, Anzala. So what you can do is actually go to a word-by-word translation. And then each of the words in English, you have a transliteration and how it is in Arabic and what the root is. So let's go this row right here of sends down, and here it's Anzala. So if I click on this root link, we get a general root meaning: to descend, come down, go down, happen, alight, settle in a place, etc., etc., etc. And it ends up with gradual revelation. And then it comes with all the other places in the Quran the word Anzala has been used. So a lot of it has to do with revelation. So, for example, let's see, here. Allah is the one who has sent down the book in truth. So just like he has sent down rain, just like God has sent down rain, God has sent down revelation. So there's there's a lot to digest in that one word choice that was used. So definitely. Did any other group talk about the water verse? I'd like to share. All right. Well,
Can I say something about that Anzala?
Yes.
So the main word is Nazala, meaning is descended. He descended. But then it's a verb from four. When you put in the front, hamza then it becomes Anzala. That means somebody bring it down. So it's not coming by itself anymore. It's coming from somebody, by somebody, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
It's beautiful. That is beautiful.
I just have to jump in. The knowledge of the Arabic and the roots is so essential to understanding the Quran, because just as Shokha demonstrated, being able to know where certain roots or verbs or actions come from are just as essential to the understanding of why we are receiving it as humans. So we know that we are not in control of the sources of things. So I really appreciate that she added that point.
Thank you. And I want to share also, based on what was being shared earlier about the feminine and the masculine. So in the curriculum guide, and I almost put this in this conversation, but we weren't going to have time. In same 16, talking about in verses 48 to 64, there's a reflection on the hypocrisy of misogyny. So, and part of these verses, God directly challenges those who view the good news of female children as bad news by showing us that their outward act of misogyny is actually a symptom of a deeper spiritual problem of hypocrisy. And then the reflection question was, how does devaluing the female gender relate to disbelief in God's oneness or shirk? So it was so interesting that we talk about that, because God contrasts in this verse the idea of what you were saying about the feminine and the masculine of rain, and how that encompasses both, with people who see female as devalued and male as valued. That is not at all in line with Quranic wisdom. All right. What about the next? Did anyone talk about the milk? So the verse here was, "And truly for you in the flocks is a lesson. We satiate you from what is in their bellies, between waste and blood, exclusively milk, that which is delicious to the ones who drink."
Our group was assigned milk.
Okay.
And unfortunately, unfortunately, two of us are lactose intolerant, and the other two are vegan and vegan.
Okay. And it just happened you got assigned to that group?
Got assigned to that group. Yeah. So what we shared was Sister Hasna's beautiful reflection that the idea of God can provide goodness for us even when we are in vile situations. The idea of milk being between the blood of the heart and the waste of the animal's intestines, and that even when people are in vile situations, God provides goodness. And as an example, the prisoners at Abu Ghraib were treated abysmally. They were tortured. They were made to crawl naked. There was no way, no water for wudu, no prayer mats, no anything, And yet we concurrently agreed that any cry that goes out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from anyone in such a vile situation is of course heard. And then we actually kind of bumped over to date palms and grapevines. I don't know if I should.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. And Sister Paula had a reflection that God gives us purity. We have the choice to keep it or defile it. For example, there is a grape variety called the cotton candy, like the cotton candy fluff at fairgrounds or things like that, which is spun sugar. And it's the grape itself is sugary and tastes like cotton candy. It gives pleasure, and the grapes can be used to make a halal beverage, grape juice, haram grape wine. And when drinking, we lose sight of the fact that we are drinking an intoxicant. And the wisdom of this verse leads to better choices, not only for the individual choosing, do I drink the halal or drink the haram, but also, especially for any person who is a parent, that choice spreads out like a ripple to succeeding generations, their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren. So we decided that after the meeting, we're going to ponder on this verse, and we were grateful that it was given to us as oh, now I can't read my notes. Sorry. It was given to us as God intended. Things are given to us as God intended and not as we intended. Something to reflect on for people who think. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Beautifully said. Yeah, I never thought about that as I'm eating a grape and enjoying it. Also thinking about, this is a moment of God consciousness for me. I could be choosing to use grapes in a different way and having wine, but I'm eating grapes. That didn't occur to me until this moment as we're talking. Let's go to that third group, talking about date palms and grapevines. So was there two groups or three groups?
Yeah, there were three.
Three.
Okay. I was part of the third one. And we touched on that a little bit too. Shaukat started by talking about free will, how we have the choice to choose a healthy, nutritious grape or wine. And Allah gave us the brains that we use to make both of those. And we have to use our minds and our abilities in the best way to serve him and also take care of our bodies. And I'm paraphrasing, so please jump in if I get this wrong. I also was thinking along those lines how Islam is for thinking people. It's something that we never have to have blind faith. There's always a reason behind everything, and it's wonderful to be able to read and uh, never prove the Quran wrong. It's perfect and right, and we'll find all the answers in that. And then on the similar note, we got philosophical, and we started talking about, like, the human appetite and moderation is really important. And it's so easy to want to over consume. It could be alcohol instead of grapes. It could be anything. And again, I'm missing major points, but please chime in for whatever I've glossed over. We could have talked about that for an hour. It was fun.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Beautiful reflections.
Thank you, Jean. Just to add on there, we did talk a little bit about Ghazali's appetite and how it's difficult to control the appetite of the tongue. We also talked about the repetition of being willing to listen and for those who reason. And that's where we got to the conversation about Islam being the religion for those who think, because we're constantly asked to use our intellect to reflect on what Allah wishes for us to do. And then we started to talk a little bit about where our intellect is located. And Shelka made a joke and said, I can't take out from my heart Iman and like show it to you, right? And so we were thinking about where intellect is located, and we decided ultimately, alhamdulillah, intellect is within the heart. And that is what propels our minds to make the decisions that carry through. Yes, we know. And then Jean added, we know 2 + 2 is 4, but enabled to enact the empathy and the compassion that Gwen described in that moment of buying the man the clothes from the Gap. You need your heart to verify why those things are beneficial to you. And so our intellect is not just for us to be incredibly smart people who memorize things and who regurgitate them, but for us to enact those things in our deeds and our actions, inshallah.
Beautiful reflection. That made me actually... Oh, go ahead, Ariana.
I kind of forgot the verse, but it kind of, when I was listening, it was getting me thinking about them talking about AI and how, you get where I'm going, and how, usually when they want to push something, they talk about all the good that will come from it and minimize all the bad that can come from it. And it's sort of the same thing they've done for a long time with wine, is they've gone back and forth. There's health benefits to it, it'll prolong your life and things like that. And then they go back and they say, actually, it won't, actually, blah, blah, blah. But I like the logic or this principle that the Quran teaches, where it says that, it never says wine is totally bad. It says that there's more evil that comes from it than good. And so that's so intelligent to me. Like, that's, I don't think that it helps people, the general population, to say, in order to, like, or even just in religion, to tell people you can't do this because it's haram. Like, that's been a really big way that religion has sort of tried to do things, and it works for certain people, like very black and white thinking. But for most of the population, that approach doesn't really work. And I think, for different types of people, right, a really intelligent thing is there's more evil that comes from it that's good. And the other is mixing truth and falsehood. Like, falsehood is never, evil is never delivered, or I shouldn't say evil, falsehood. Falsehood is never delivered completely as falsehood. Like, they always mix some good in there to get people to buy into it, because we're just a lot more intelligent than that. And so, you just have to weigh. There has to be judgment. There's nuance, and discussions. Groups like these are really good. Tolerance, right, for different people, different.
Absolutely. What you were saying about falsehood mixed with truth reminds me last month when we were talking about manipulation tactics of Joseph's brothers, Prophet Joseph's brothers, and how they put some truth and then they fluffed it up. But so powerful what you mentioned about when any big business or corporation, whatever it might be, is trying to sell something, they're going to paint it as wholly good. and then they paint something else as wholly evil, and the reality is nothing is that simple, right? Because same with cigarette smoke. Cigarettes were painted as all these good things, and later on they had to put the warning, right? Same with alcohol, same with AI, same with social media. We talked, I don't think we got to social media last time, but now as it's coming out is weighing how much, what is the good, what is the bad, which one is more. One thing, and Hasna in the curriculum comes out very strong against AI, and what she talks about is that it separates you from consciousness, just like alcohol, anything that separates you from a conscious state. So having something create something and then deliver it without that idea of thinking and reflecting on it is we have to really question in terms of if we're being separated from that part of us, why and what is being taken from us. And then Fatima put in the chat, yes, you can apply the same logic for a lot of haram things, pork, intoxicants, etc. I think having that nuance that Ariana talked about is important, because there may be a child who's told you don't eat pork and their friends like it's so delicious, and now suddenly their world is shattered. Well, what do I do? It's supposed to be evil. Gwen put, AI is buying old rare books, cutting off the spies to scan them, and then shredding the books. Oh, that's sad.
I'm thinking that it is possible that AI might just turn out to be a tool, like with the internet, that needs to be regulated.
Sure.
And it might not be totally bad, but
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's like, how do you decide that? And like, you know what I mean? Other than experimenting on people and then waiting 5 years later to see what harms happen to people, which is how we seem to do things. I think like the Quran also gives an answer for that too, in that that like there are principles that can be applied to everything, and as long as you're clear on the principles, then you're good. And I think that that's something that, like, they call it ethics here, and it's like kind of like stuff, like pushed into the back. And so like I don't even know how much even people who work in ethics, like I don't even know what they do anymore, but that should be at the forefront, you know what I mean, of everything. And so I think that there are principles, overarching principles, which we talk about in these discussion circles, like we kind of unearth them, but there are themes, and they can turn into like some, creeds or whatever that a corporation or a business could apply to themselves too.
Absolutely. Thank you. The last thing, one of the sisters was talking about free will, talking about the idea of desires and reason. I don't remember who was that. Who was talking about that?
I think that was Jean.
Okay.
Yeah. And Rakia
You're on
too
mute.
talked about it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Shokat started our conversation with talking about free will with the grapes and dates.
Yes.
That's where it started.
Yeah. So what I'll share here then in the from the curriculum, because this surah is titled the bee, and we purposely did not talk about the bee metaphor this time because we've talked about it in the past. So I encourage you to check out the 2024 discussion on that. But in this same vein, it talks about the difference between human beings and God's other creations is that humans have been given the capacity for free will, the ability to choose to live in accordance with God's laws or to choose to deny God's laws for a time. Here's what one famous 13th century Islamic scholar said about this difference. God has created angels having reason but no desires, animals having desires and no reason, and man has both reason and desires. Therefore, if one's reason is stronger than his desires, he's like an angel. On the other hand, if one's desires are stronger, he's like an animal. So this is Ibn al-Qayyim, The Way to Patience and Gratitude, and really, how do you balance the two? So with that, the last question then for us is just, where will we go next? What's something that we are walking away with after our discussion today? Because if we enjoyed this exercise, let's not stop. Let's continue to read and live our Quran-inspired life. And I'm going to put in the chat what the curriculum talks about. It says, as you continue reading and living your Quran-inspired life, keep listening more than you speak, Keep thinking critically more than you follow without questioning, and keep reflecting more than you rush past in haste. So let's take 1 minute to reflect. The question is, what are you walking away with after our discussion today? For now, why don't we put our answers just in the chat once we have it. What are you walking away with after our discussion today? So you don't have to share it out loud, just put it in the chat. I'm going to read a couple as they came out. One person put, taking time to ponder, the extra beat before reaction can change a conversation, mood, or the trajectory of the day. Someone else said, I'm walking away with an awareness. When I see rain, eat a date or grape, drink milk, and expanding this awareness, God consciousness to other items I experience with my senses. Renewed efforts to be more God conscious in my everyday life and thinking. Also looking to enjoy the purity of the fresh fruits and vegetables that God meant for my body. I'm going to ponder the importance and balance of the fact that my free will is God-given as well as self-directed, and how that should influence my thoughts, words, and deeds. I am blessed that Allah Azza wa Jal did not make me an angel or an animal. In my creation as a human, moreover a woman, I am able to practice and cultivate the habits that allow my reason to overcome my lower desires. In this way, I can craft a form of living that is more humane for myself and for future women. SubhanAllah. Thinking about things on a spectrum versus duality and why these things show up the way they do. I will pause and enjoy water more too, especially in the heat right now. Keep listening and reflecting on daily life. More importantly, apply Quranic guidance and actions. So thank you all for, again, you can keep putting in the chat if you still need to, but wonderful discussion. So much I'm learning from being in group with you all. Dr. Nabi, I will turn it over to you.
Sure. Alhamdulillah. Once again, a wonderful discussion. So many wonderful insights, and I appreciate learning from you all every month. Thank you so much for being here. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Amen. Thank you again for being here. See you next month, inshallah. September 6th is our next discussion. And inshallah, we'll see you all then. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Goodbye.
Wassalam.